Dragons soaring through the skies, enchanted forests hiding ancient secrets, and heroes wielding magic to battle darkness. These are the images that fill our modern fantasy worlds. But what if I told you that the roots of these breathtaking tales stretch back thousands of years, woven into the fabric of ancient myths and legends? The stories we love today, from the sprawling realms of Westeros to the mystical landscapes of Middle-earth, are deeply connected to the timeless narratives that have captivated humanity for generations. These ancient tales, brimming with magic, mystery, and meaning, have shaped the way we dream, create, and imagine the impossible. In this video, we'll journey through the origins of these legendary stories, uncovering the mystical elements that made them so enduring. We'll explore how the whispers of the past echo in the pages of modern fantasy, from the dragons of myth to the elves of folklore. And we'll answer a question that might just change the way you see your favorite stories. What if the fantastical worlds we cherish today were born from fireside tales told centuries ago? Join me as we dive into the heart of these timeless legends, tracing their influence on the fantasies that continue to inspire us. This isn't just a history lesson, it's an adventure through the very soul of storytelling itself. Long before the written word, our ancestors gathered around flickering fires, spinning tales of gods, monsters, and heroes. These stories, passed down through generations, became the bedrock of human imagination. Among the earliest of these recorded myths is the Epic of Gilgamesh, etched into clay tablets over 4,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia. It tells the story of a king's quest for immortality, blending themes of friendship, loss, and the inevitability of death, ideas that still resonate with us today. Similarly, the myths of ancient Egypt, with their pantheon of gods and tales of the afterlife, offered explanations for the mysteries of life and the universe. These stories weren't just entertainment, they were the way early civilizations made sense of the world around them. But how did these tales survive for thousands of years? The answer lies in the power of oral traditions. Before writing became widespread, stories were memorized, performed, and shared aloud. Skilled storytellers, often called bards or griots, wove intricate narratives that captivated their audiences, ensuring the tales lived on. Over time, these stories evolved, adapting to new cultures and contexts. What began as local legends often merged with the myths of neighboring peoples, creating rich tapestries of shared folklore. At the heart of these ancient myths are universal themes that transcend time and geography. Heroism, morality, and the supernatural appear again and again, from the Sumerian hero Gilgamesh to the Norse god Thor. These recurring motifs reflect the shared hopes, fears, and values of humanity. They remind us that, despite our differences, we've always been drawn to stories of courage, justice, and the struggle between good and evil. As these myths spread, they began to intertwine with local legends, blending the fantastical with the familiar. This fusion of ancient narratives and regional folklore set the stage for the rich, diverse storytelling traditions that would follow. It's here, in this mingling of myth and legend, that we begin to see the seeds of modern fantasy taking root. As the ancient myths traveled across continents, they began to take on new forms, shaped by the cultures and landscapes they encountered. This is where folklore truly comes alive, stories rooted in the soil of specific regions, reflecting the values, fears, and dreams of the people who told them. From the misty hills of Celtic Britain to the rugged fjords of Scandinavia, these tales became more than just entertainment. They were a way for communities to make sense of their world. Take, for example, the Arthurian legends, which emerged from the Celtic traditions of Britain. Stories of King Arthur and his knights didn't just celebrate heroism and chivalry. They also served as a mirror for the struggles and ideals of medieval society. The tale of the Holy Grail, for instance, wasn't just a quest for a sacred relic. It was a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment and the pursuit of a higher purpose. Similarly, the Irish myths of the Tuatha De Danann, a race of godlike beings, blended history and magic, offering explanations for the origins of the Irish people and their connection to the land. In Scandinavia, the Norse sagas painted vivid pictures of gods, giants, and warriors, each tale imbued with a sense of destiny and the inevitability of fate. The story of Ragnarok, the apocalyptic battle that would end the world, wasn't just a dramatic finale. It was a reflection of the Norse belief in cycles of creation and destruction, a reminder that even the mightiest forces are subject to the laws of time. These stories weren't just told for entertainment. They were lessons, warnings, and affirmations of cultural identity. Storytelling itself became a cornerstone of these communities. In the absence of written records, bards and skalds, the keepers of oral tradition, played a vital role in preserving and sharing these tales. They didn't just recite stories, they performed them, using rhythm, rhyme, and repetition to make the narratives unforgettable. This oral tradition ensured that the stories remained flexible, adapting to new audiences and changing times while retaining their core themes. But folklore didn't stay confined to the fireside. As societies evolved, so did their stories. The Arthurian legends, for instance, were later written down and embellished by authors like Geoffrey of Monmouth and Chrétien de Troyes, transforming them from local tales into literary masterpieces. The Norse sagas, too, found their way into written form, preserving the rich mythology of the Vikings for future generations. This transition from oral tradition to written literature marked a turning point in the evolution of these stories. No longer bound by the limits of memory, they could now reach wider audiences and inspire new generations of storytellers. Writers, poets, and artists began to draw from these legends, reimagining them in ways that reflected their own times and cultures. And it's here, in this fusion of folklore and literature, that we start to see the foundations of modern fantasy taking shape. The transition from oral myths to written literature marked a monumental shift in how stories were told and preserved. Among the earliest and most influential of these literary works are Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, epic poems that brought the myths of ancient Greece to life in vivid detail. These tales, composed around the 8th century BC, didn't just recount the exploits of gods and heroes. They explored the complexities of human nature, from Achilles' tragic pride to Odysseus' cunning resilience. By immortalizing these myths in writing, Homer ensured that the stories of the Trojan War and the adventures of Odysseus would resonate across millennia, inspiring countless generations of storytellers. Equally transformative was Ovid's Metamorphoses, a masterpiece of Roman literature that wove together over 200 myths into a single, cohesive narrative. Ovid's work was revolutionary in its structure, tracing the history of the world through a series of transformations: humans becoming trees, gods taking mortal forms, and heroes ascending to the stars. These metamorphoses weren't just fantastical events. They were metaphors for change, growth, and the fluid nature of identity. Ovid's ability to blend myth with poetic artistry made Metamorphoses a cornerstone of Western literature, preserving ancient stories while infusing them with new layers of meaning. At the heart of these early literary works are recurring motifs that have become the backbone of storytelling. Quests, for instance, appear again and again, from Odysseus' long journey home to the trials of Hercules. These quests aren't just physical journeys, they're symbolic of personal growth, the search for meaning, and the struggle against adversity. Divine intervention, too, plays a central role, with gods and goddesses meddling in human affairs, testing mortals and shaping their destinies. These themes remind us that the line between the mortal and the divine has always been a source of fascination, blurring the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Another enduring motif is transformation, both literal and metaphorical. Whether it's the nymph Daphne becoming a laurel tree to escape Apollo's pursuit or the hero Perseus using Medusa's gaze to turn his enemies to stone, these stories explore the idea that change is an inevitable part of life. Transformation isn't just a plot device, it's a reflection of the human experience, our capacity to adapt, to overcome, and to emerge from challenges stronger than before. What makes these early literary works so remarkable is their ability to reinterpret ancient myths for new audiences. Homer and Ovid didn't simply retell old stories, they reshaped them, adding depth, emotion, and relevance to their own times. In doing so, they created a bridge between the myths of the past and the literature of the future. These texts became a wellspring of inspiration for later writers, who drew from their themes, characters, and narratives to craft their own tales. This literary tradition didn't just preserve mythology, it elevated it, transforming oral stories into enduring works of art. By doing so, it laid the groundwork for the fantastical worlds we know today. The quests, transformations, and divine interventions that captivated ancient audiences continue to shape modern fantasy, from the hero's journey in The Lord of the Rings to the magical realism of Harry Potter. These early works remind us that the stories we tell are part of an unbroken chain, stretching back to the very dawn of human imagination. As we move forward in our exploration, we'll see how these literary traditions evolved, blending with new cultural influences to create the rich, diverse tapestry of fantasy we know today. The journey from myth to modern fantasy is far from over. It's a story that continues to unfold, one tale at a time. The 19th and early 20th centuries marked a turning point in the evolution of storytelling, as ancient myths and legends began to find new life in the pages of modern fantasy. This era saw the rise of authors who didn't just borrow from the past, they reimagined it, weaving the threads of folklore and mythology into entirely new worlds. Among these trailblazers were J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, two literary giants whose works would forever change the way we think about fantasy. Tolkien, a scholar of ancient languages and myths, drew deeply from the well of Norse and Anglo-Saxon legends. His fascination with these tales wasn't just academic, it was deeply personal. The epic scope of Norse sagas, with their themes of heroism, fate, and the struggle against darkness, resonated with him on a profound level. In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien channeled this passion into Middle-earth, a world rich with echoes of ancient myth. The One Ring, for instance, mirrors the cursed treasures of Norse legend, while characters like Gandalf embody the archetype of the wise, wandering sage found in countless folktales. Tolkien didn't just retell these stories, he transformed them, crafting a narrative that felt both timeless and entirely original. C.S. Lewis, Tolkien's close friend and fellow scholar, took a different but equally transformative approach. Inspired by Christian theology and mythological archetypes, Lewis infused the chronicles of Narnia with layers of allegory and symbolism. The lion Aslan, for example, isn't just a majestic creature, he's a Christ-like figure embodying sacrifice, resurrection, and redemption. Lewis's use of mythological elements, from fauns to talking animals, created a world that felt both magical and deeply meaningful. His stories weren't just adventures, they were parables, inviting readers to explore profound truths through the lens of fantasy. What makes these authors so remarkable is their ability to adapt ancient myths for contemporary audiences. They didn't simply copy the stories of old, they reinterpreted them, infusing them with new themes and perspectives that spoke to the concerns of their time. Tolkien's Middle-earth, for instance, reflects the devastation of war and the struggle to preserve beauty and meaning in a changing world, a theme that resonated deeply in the aftermath of the First World War. Lewis's Narnia, meanwhile, offered a vision of hope and renewal, drawing on the timeless appeal of myth to address questions of faith, morality, and the human condition. This reimagining of ancient tales didn't just create compelling stories. It laid the foundation for modern fantasy as we know it. Tolkien and Lewis showed that myths aren't relics of the past. They're living, breathing narratives that can be reshaped and reimagined to speak to new generations. Their works inspired countless authors, from Ursula K. Le Guin to George R.R. Martin, who continue to draw from the rich tapestry of myth to create worlds that captivate and inspire. As we look at the legacy of Tolkien and Lewis, it's clear that their genius lies not just in their storytelling, but in their ability to bridge the ancient and the modern. They proved that the myths of old aren't just stories, they're the building blocks of our imagination, the timeless threads that connect us to the past and guide us into the future. And as we'll see in the next part of our journey, this blending of myth and modernity continues to shape the fantasy worlds we love today. At the heart of every great story lies a pattern, a blueprint that feels strangely familiar, even if the world it inhabits is entirely new. These patterns, known as archetypes, are the timeless character types and story structures that have been passed down through myths and legends for centuries. In modern fantasy, these archetypes continue to thrive, offering a sense of connection and resonance that draws us in, whether we're exploring the halls of Hogwarts or battling alongside Thor in Asgard. One of the most enduring archetypes is the hero's journey, a narrative structure that traces a protagonist's path from ordinary beginnings to extraordinary transformation. This pattern, rooted in ancient myths like the Epic of Gilgamesh and the labors of Hercules, appears time and again in modern fantasy. Think of Harry Potter, an unassuming boy who discovers he's destined for greatness, or Frodo Baggins, a humble hobbit tasked with saving Middle-earth. These heroes follow a path that feels universal, facing trials, confronting their fears, and ultimately emerging changed. The hero's journey resonates because it mirrors our own struggles and aspirations, reminding us that even the most ordinary among us can rise to extraordinary challenges. Equally iconic is the wise mentor, a figure who guides the hero on their journey, offering wisdom, support, and sometimes a nudge in the right direction. In mythology, this archetype appears as figures like the Greek god Hermes or the Norse god Odin, who often act as guides to mortal heroes. In modern fantasy, we see this role embodied by characters like Dumbledore, whose calm, enigmatic presence helps Harry navigate the complexities of magic and morality. The mentor isn't just a teacher, they're a symbol of the knowledge and experience passed down through generations, a bridge between the past and the future. Then there's the trickster, a character who thrives on chaos, mischief, and unpredictability. In mythology, figures like Loki from Norse legends or Anansi from African folklore embody this archetype, using their cunning to challenge the status quo and reveal deeper truths. In modern storytelling, Loki takes on a new life in Marvel's cinematic universe, where his wit and unpredictability make him both a villain and an anti-hero. The trickster's role is to disrupt, to question, and to remind us that not everything is as it seems. They add layers of complexity to a story, keeping us on our toes and challenging our assumptions. What makes these archetypes so powerful is their universality. They tap into shared human experiences, our desire for guidance, our fascination with transformation, and our love of a good twist. When we encounter these familiar patterns in modern fantasy, they create a sense of comfort and connection, even as the stories themselves take us to new and fantastical worlds. But archetypes aren't just about characters, they're also the foundation of world building. Myths and legends provide a rich tapestry of themes, symbols, and motifs that authors and creators can draw from to craft immersive, believable universes. The gods, monsters, and magical realms of ancient myths inspire the landscapes of modern fantasy, from the sprawling cities of Game of Thrones to the hidden magical societies of the magicians. These worlds feel alive because they're built on the same timeless elements that have captivated humanity for millennia. As we delve deeper into the art of storytelling, we'll see how these archetypes and mythological inspirations continue to shape the worlds we love. The journey from myth to modern fantasy is far from over. It's a living, breathing process that evolves with every new story we tell. And in that evolution, we find not just the echoes of the past, but the seeds of the future. What makes a fantasy world feel alive? It's not just the sweeping landscapes or the intricate plots, it's the subtle echoes of ancient myths that breathe life into every corner of these fictional realms. Modern fantasy authors have mastered the art of drawing from the rich tapestry of mythology, weaving its threads into their worlds to create settings that feel both fantastical and deeply familiar. From the towering dragons of Westeros to the intricate magic of the Wheel of Time, these stories are steeped in the traditions of the past, yet reimagined in ways that captivate modern audiences. Take George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, for example. The world of Westeros is a masterclass in myth-inspired world-building. The dragons, central to the Targaryen legacy, aren't just fearsome creatures, they're symbols of power, destruction, and rebirth, much like the dragons of ancient myths. In many cultures, dragons represent chaos and the untamed forces of nature, and Martin uses this archetype to explore themes of ambition and the cost of power. Similarly, the White Walkers, icy beings of destruction, evoke the relentless, otherworldly threats found in Norse and Celtic folklore. By grounding these elements in mythological traditions, Martin creates a world that feels both epic and eerily plausible. Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time takes a different but equally mythic approach. The series' magic system, based on a duality of male and female energies, draws heavily from Eastern philosophies and mythological concepts of balance and harmony. The idea of a cyclical time where history repeats itself in an endless wheel echoes Hindu and Buddhist beliefs about the nature of existence. Jordan doesn't just borrow these ideas, he adapts them, creating a system that feels fresh yet deeply rooted in the wisdom of ancient traditions. This fusion of myth and imagination gives the Wheel of Time a sense of timelessness, as if its story could have been told 1,000 years ago or 1,000 years from now. But it's not just the grand ideas that make these worlds resonate, it's the smaller, more intimate details. Mythical creatures, for instance, play a vital role in adding texture and depth to fantasy settings. In A Song of Ice and Fire, direwolves are more than just oversized wolves. They're symbols of loyalty, intuition, and the primal bond between humans and nature. This connection to ancient wolf myths, where wolves often serve as guides or protectors, adds layers of meaning to the Stark family's bond with their direwolves. Similarly, in The Wheel of Time, creatures like the Ogier gentle giants with a deep connection to nature echo the mystical beings of Celtic folklore, blending the magical with the mundane in a way that feels both wondrous and believable. Divine hierarchies, too, play a crucial role in shaping these worlds. In many mythologies, gods and goddesses aren't just distant figures, they're active participants in the lives of mortals, shaping destinies and wielding power in ways that are both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Modern fantasy often mirrors this dynamic, with gods or god-like beings influencing the fates of characters. In A Song of Ice and Fire, the Lord of Light and the many-faced god represent opposing forces of fire and death, their influence felt in the actions of their followers. These deities aren't just background elements, they're integral to the story, driving the narrative forward and adding a sense of cosmic stakes. What makes these mythological elements so effective in modern fantasy is their ability to ground the extraordinary in something recognizable. When we encounter a dragon or a direwolf, we're not just seeing a fantastical creature, we're tapping into centuries of storytelling where these beings have carried meaning and symbolism. By drawing on these traditions, authors create worlds that feel rich, layered, and alive, inviting us to explore their depths while connecting us to the timeless power of myth. As we move forward, we'll see how these mythical creatures and divine hierarchies continue to evolve, taking on new forms and meanings in the hands of modern storytellers. The journey from ancient myth to modern fantasy is a testament to the enduring power of these stories and to the limitless creativity of those who reimagine them. Dragons, elves, and dwarves, these are the creatures that populate our favorite fantasy worlds, their presence so vivid and real that they feel almost tangible. But where did these fantastical beings come from? Their origins stretch back to the oldest myths and legends, where they first took shape in the imaginations of our ancestors. Over time, they've evolved, adapting to new stories and cultures while retaining the magic that made them unforgettable. Let's take a closer look at how these mythical creatures have journeyed from ancient myths to the pages of modern fantasy, and how they continue to captivate us today. First, consider the dragon, a creature that appears in nearly every culture's mythology, yet takes on wildly different forms. In Chinese mythology, dragons are revered as symbols of power, wisdom, and good fortune. They're often depicted as serpentine beings, capable of controlling the elements and bringing rain to nourish the land. These dragons are benevolent, almost godlike figures, deeply woven into the cultural and spiritual fabric of ancient China. Compare this to the dragons of Game of Thrones, where they are fearsome, fire-breathing beasts of war, symbols of destruction and dominance. Yet, even in their ferocity, they carry echoes of their ancient counterparts, powerful, awe-inspiring, and deeply symbolic. The transformation of the dragon from a bringer of life to a harbinger of destruction shows how myths can be reshaped to fit new narratives while still preserving their essence. Elves, too, have undergone a fascinating evolution. In Norse mythology, elves or alpha were ethereal beings associated with nature, fertility, and beauty. They were often seen as intermediaries between the gods and humans, embodying a delicate balance between the mortal and the divine. Tolkien, drawing from these Norse legends, reimagined elves as noble, immortal beings with a deep connection to the natural world. His elves, like those of the Lord of the Rings, are wise, graceful, and imbued with a sense of melancholy, reflecting their long lives and the weight of their knowledge. Yet, even as Tolkien elevated them to new heights, he kept their mystical essence intact, ensuring they remained more than just characters. They became symbols of a fading, magical world. Dwarves, on the other hand, have their roots in Germanic and Norse folklore, where they were often depicted as skilled craftsmen and miners living deep within the earth. These beings were known for their strength, resilience, and connection to the underground, a stark contrast to the ethereal elves. Tolkien's dwarves, with their love of treasure and intricate craftsmanship, stayed true to these ancient roots, but he also gave them a distinct personality and culture, making them more than just stock characters. In modern fantasy, dwarves continue to evolve from the stoic warriors of Dungeons and Dragons to the complex, multi-dimensional figures in works like The Witcher. Each adaptation adds new layers to their story while still honoring their mythological origins. What's remarkable about these creatures is how they've been reimagined to fit new narratives without losing their mystical essence. Authors and creators take the raw materials of ancient myths and shape them into something fresh and relevant, whether it's a dragon symbolizing political power or an elf grappling with the passage of time. These adaptations remind us that myths aren't static, they're living, breathing stories that grow and change with each retelling. But it's not just the creatures themselves that carry this magic, it's the way they interact with the worlds they inhabit. In myths, dragons, elves, and dwarves often serve as symbols embodying the forces of nature, the mysteries of life, or the struggles of humanity. Modern fantasy takes this a step further, weaving these beings into the fabric of their worlds, making them integral to the story's themes and conflicts. A dragon isn't just a monster to be slain, it's a reflection of the hero's inner turmoil. An elf isn't just a graceful archer, it's a reminder of the beauty and fragility of the natural world. And then there's magic, the invisible thread that ties these creatures to their mythical origins. In ancient myths, magic was often a force of nature, unpredictable and uncontrollable, wielded by gods, spirits, and mythical beings. Modern fantasy has taken this idea and expanded it, creating intricate systems of magic that feel as real and tangible as the worlds they inhabit. Whether it's the elemental magic of Avatar, the Last Airbender, or the intricate spellcraft of Harry Potter, these systems draw from the same well of wonder that inspired the myths of old. Magic, in both myths and modern fantasy, is more than just a plot device. It's a way to explore the boundaries of possibility, to imagine what lies beyond the ordinary. As we explore the role of magic in these stories, we'll see how it connects the ancient and the modern, the mythical and the fantastical. The journey of these creatures from the fireside tales of old to the blockbuster worlds of today is a testament to the enduring power of myth. And as long as we continue to dream, they'll keep evolving, inspiring new stories and new worlds for generations to come. Magic has always been the spark that ignites the imagination, transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. In ancient myths, magic was often a force of the gods, unpredictable, awe-inspiring, and deeply tied to the natural world. It wasn't something mortals could control or fully understand. It was a gift, a curse, or sometimes a divine punishment. Think of the Greek myths where gods like Zeus wielded lightning as a weapon, or the Norse tales where Odin's magic granted him wisdom at the cost of his eye. In these stories, magic was more than just a tool. It was a symbol of the mysterious, the otherworldly, and the divine. But as myths evolved into modern fantasy, so did the concept of magic. No longer just the domain of gods and spirits, magic became something that could be studied, mastered, and even systematized. Take Harry Potter, for example. J.K. Rowling's Wizarding World introduces us to a structured magical system, complete with spells, potions, and schools of magic. Here, magic isn't just a mystical force, it's a science with rules, limitations, and endless possibilities. This shift from divine intervention to structured systems reflects a broader change in how we view magic, not as something beyond our grasp, but as a skill that can be learned, honed, and wielded with precision. Similarly, in Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind, magic is portrayed as a discipline requiring knowledge, practice, and creativity. The protagonist, Kvarth, doesn't just stumble upon magic. He studies it, pushing the boundaries of what's possible through sheer determination and ingenuity. This approach to magic mirrors our own relationship with technology and innovation, where knowledge and effort can unlock incredible potential. By grounding magic in systems and rules, modern fantasy makes it feel more accessible, even as it retains its sense of wonder. Yet, despite these differences, the magic of myths and modern fantasy shares a common purpose: to bridge the mundane and the extraordinary. In myths, magic often served as a way to explain the unexplainable: why the sun rises, how the seasons change, or what happens after death. It was a way to make sense of the world, to find meaning in the chaos. Modern fantasy takes this idea and expands on it, using magic to explore deeper themes like power, responsibility, and the human condition. In Harry Potter, for instance, magic isn't just a source of wonder, it's a metaphor for the choices we make and the impact they have on the world around us. This evolution of magic also reflects a shift in how we see ourselves. In myths, mortals were often at the mercy of the gods, their fates dictated by forces beyond their control. But in modern fantasy, characters like Harry Potter or Kvarth take charge of their own destinies, using magic as a tool to shape their worlds. This empowerment resonates with audiences, offering a sense of hope and possibility. It reminds us that, even in the face of overwhelming odds, we have the ability to create change, to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. As we explore the role of magic in these stories, we begin to see how it shapes not just the worlds they inhabit, but the characters who wield it. Magic becomes a reflection of their struggles, their growth, and their humanity. It's no longer just a plot device, it's a way to delve deeper into what it means to be a hero, a villain, or even an ordinary person caught in an extraordinary world. And it's here, in the interplay between magic and character, that we find the true heart of storytelling. Whether it's the divine power of ancient myths or the structured systems of modern fantasy, magic serves as a lens through which we can explore the timeless themes of courage, ambition, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. As we turn our attention to the heroes and villains who populate these tales, we'll see how these themes come to life, shaped by the magic that surrounds them and the choices they make. Heroes and villains, these are the figures who define the stories we tell, embodying the timeless struggle between light and darkness. In ancient myths, heroes like Hercules and Achilles stood as paragons of strength, courage, and destiny. Hercules, with his 12 labors, represented the ultimate test of endurance and virtue, while Achilles, the invincible warrior of the Trojan War, symbolized both the glory and tragedy of heroism. These figures weren't just larger than life, they were archetypes embodying the ideals and flaws of humanity itself. Fast forward to modern fantasy, and we find echoes of these ancient heroes in characters like Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings and Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games. Aragorn, the reluctant king, carries the weight of his lineage and the burden of leadership, much like the heroes of old who are often defined by their destinies. Katniss, on the other hand, is a different kind of hero, one shaped by survival and sacrifice rather than divine birthright. Her journey from a reluctant participant to a symbol of rebellion mirrors the transformative arcs of mythological figures, proving that heroism isn't just about strength, it's about resilience, choice, and the courage to stand against overwhelming odds. But not all heroes are straightforward. The rise of the anti-hero in modern storytelling reflects a shift in how we view morality and complexity. Figures like Loki from Norse mythology and Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones blur the lines between hero and villain, challenging our expectations and forcing us to question what it means to be good. Loki, the trickster god, embodies chaos and unpredictability, often acting as both ally and adversary to the gods. Similarly, Jaime Lannister begins as a seemingly irredeemable figure, only to reveal layers of vulnerability and redemption as his story unfolds. These anti-heroes remind us that morality isn't black and white, it's a spectrum, shaped by circumstance, perspective, and the choices we make. Villains, too, have evolved from their mythological roots. In ancient myths, figures like Medusa were often portrayed as monstrous, their actions driven by curses or divine punishment. Medusa, once a beautiful woman transformed into a gorgon, became a symbol of both terror and tragedy. Modern fantasy has taken this complexity further, crafting villains who are as compelling as they are terrifying. Think of Sauron from The Lord of the Rings, a being of pure malice, yet one whose very existence raises questions about power and corruption. Or consider Cersei Lannister, whose ruthless ambition is tempered by her deep, if twisted, love for her children. These characters aren't just obstacles for the heroes, they're mirrors reflecting the darker aspects of humanity and the choices that lead to destruction. At the heart of these stories lies the concept of prophecy and fate, a theme as old as storytelling itself. In myths, heroes like Oedipus and Achilles are bound by prophecies that shape their lives, often in ways they can't escape. This idea of destiny, of a higher power guiding the course of events, adds a layer of inevitability and grandeur to their tales. Modern fantasy often plays with this concept, sometimes embracing it, as in Harry Potter, where the prophecy about Harry and Voldemort drives the narrative, and sometimes subverting it, as in Game of Thrones, where prophecies are often ambiguous or misleading. This tension between fate and free will adds depth to the stories, forcing characters and audiences to grapple with questions of agency and purpose. What connects these ancient and modern figures is their ability to reflect the complexities of the human experience. Whether it's a hero striving to fulfill their destiny, an anti-hero navigating the gray areas of morality, or a villain whose actions are driven by pain and ambition, these characters remind us that storytelling is ultimately about understanding ourselves. They show us that the line between hero and villain is often thinner than we think, and that the choices we make, shaped by fate, circumstance, or sheer will, define who we are. As we move forward, we'll explore how these themes of heroism, morality, and fate continue to shape the worlds of modern fantasy, weaving together the threads of myth and modernity into narratives that resonate across time and culture. The journey of these characters from the ancient fireside to the pages of our favorite books is a testament to the enduring power of storytelling and to the timeless truths it reveals about who we are. Prophecies and fate have always been the invisible threads that weave through the fabric of storytelling, binding characters to their destinies and shaping the worlds they inhabit. In ancient myths, these elements were often the driving force behind a hero's journey, creating a sense of inevitability that both elevated and constrained their actions. Think of Oedipus, whose tragic fate was sealed by a prophecy before he was even born, or the Norse hero Sigurd, whose life was intertwined with the foretold doom of the dragon Fafnir. These stories weren't just about individuals, they were about the larger forces that governed their lives, forces that even the gods themselves couldn't escape. Modern fantasy has inherited this fascination with prophecy and fate, using it to deepen narratives and heighten tension. Take Harry Potter, for instance. The prophecy about Harry and Voldemort isn't just a plot device, it's the linchpin of the entire series. It shapes Harry's identity, his choices, and ultimately his destiny. What's fascinating is how the prophecy is both specific and ambiguous. It could have referred to Harry or Neville Longbottom, and it's Harry's own actions that make it come true. This interplay between fate and free will add layers of complexity, forcing characters and readers to grapple with questions of agency and responsibility. Is Harry truly the chosen one because of the prophecy, or does he become the chosen one because of the choices he makes? Similarly, in The Wheel of Time, the concept of prophecy is central to the story's sprawling narrative. The Dragon Reborn, a figure foretold to either save or destroy the world, is both a savior and a harbinger of chaos. Randall Thor, the series' protagonist, must come to terms with this dual identity, wrestling with the weight of his destiny while trying to forge his own path. The prophecies in The Wheel of Time are intricate and layered, often requiring interpretation and reinterpretation as the story unfolds. This mirrors the way ancient myths often presented prophecies, not as clear-cut instructions, but as riddles that characters must decipher, adding a sense of mystery and urgency to their journeys. What makes prophecies so compelling in both myths and modern fantasy is their ability to create a sense of inevitability while still leaving room for choice. They set the stage for a grand, almost cosmic drama where individual actions ripple outward, shaping the fate of entire worlds. This tension between destiny and free will resonates deeply with audiences, reflecting our own struggles to navigate the forces that shape our lives. Are we masters of our own fate, or are we bound by larger, unseen forces? These stories invite us to explore that question, offering no easy answers but plenty of food for thought. Beyond the narrative, prophecies and fate also carry a cultural significance that transcends the stories themselves. In ancient times, prophecies were often seen as messages from the gods, offering guidance or warnings to mortals. They were a way of making sense of the unpredictable, of finding order in chaos. In modern fantasy, prophecies serve a similar purpose, but they also reflect our contemporary concerns about identity, purpose, and the future. They remind us that no matter how much we try to control our lives, there will always be elements beyond our understanding forces that shape our paths in ways we can't always foresee. This cultural resonance is perhaps why prophecies continue to captivate us, whether they're etched into ancient tablets or whispered in the halls of Hogwarts. They speak to something timeless within us, a longing to understand our place in the universe, to find meaning in the chaos, and to believe that our lives are part of a larger, meaningful story. As we move forward in our exploration, we'll see how this interplay of prophecy, fate, and free will continues to shape the worlds of modern fantasy, offering new ways to explore the eternal questions that have fascinated humanity for millennia. Myths and legends are more than just stories, they're the lifeblood of cultural identity, shaping the way communities see themselves and the world around them. From the sprawling epics of ancient civilizations to the intimate folktales passed down through generations, these narratives have served as mirrors, reflecting the values, struggles, and dreams of the people who told them. Take the Mahabharata, for instance, one of the longest and most profound epics in human history. This Indian masterpiece isn't just a tale of war and family drama. It's a philosophical exploration of duty, morality, and the complexities of human relationships. Its influence stretches far beyond literature, shaping religious practices, art, and even political thought in South Asia. The Mahabharata is more than a story, it's a cultural cornerstone, a shared heritage that continues to resonate across centuries. But it's not just grand epics that carry this weight. Local folktales, often dismissed as simple or quaint, play an equally vital role in shaping cultural identities. Consider the Anansi stories of West Africa, where the clever spider outwits stronger foes through wit and ingenuity. These tales, brought to the Americas through the transatlantic slave trade, became a symbol of resilience and resourcefulness for enslaved communities. Anansi wasn't just a character, he was a reminder that even the smallest and most vulnerable could triumph through cleverness and determination. These stories, passed down through oral tradition, became a way for people to preserve their heritage and pass on lessons of survival and hope. Modern fantasy continues this tradition, using mythical frameworks to explore contemporary issues in ways that feel both timeless and urgent. George R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, for example, delves into themes of power, corruption, and the cost of ambition, mirroring the political and social complexities of our own world. Similarly, N.K. Jemisin's The Broken Earth trilogy uses the fantastical to examine systemic oppression, environmental collapse, and the resilience of marginalized communities. By grounding these modern concerns in the language of myth, fantasy allows us to grapple with difficult topics in a way that feels both familiar and transformative. What makes these stories so powerful is their ability to transcend cultural boundaries. Myths and folktales may originate in specific regions, but their themes, heroism, love, loss, and the search for meaning are universal. This global appeal is why fantasy has become one of the most beloved genres worldwide. Whether it's the wizarding world of Harry Potter or the sprawling kingdoms of Game of Thrones, these stories speak to something deep within us, connecting people across languages, cultures, and generations. This connection isn't just limited to books. Myths have long inspired visual storytelling, and modern fantasy has taken this to new heights in film and television. Consider the way The Lord of the Rings brings Tolkien's mythic world to life, with its sweeping landscapes and epic battles, or how Avatar, The Last Airbender draws from Eastern philosophies and martial arts to create a richly layered narrative. These adaptations don't just retell stories, they expand them, adding new dimensions through visuals, music, and performance. The result is a shared experience that brings myth and fantasy to an even wider audience, creating a sense of collective wonder that transcends the page. As we look ahead, it's clear that myths and fantasy will continue to shape our cultural landscape, offering new ways to explore the world and our place within it. Whether through the pages of a book, the frames of a film, or the pixels of a video game, these stories remind us of the power of imagination and the timeless truths that bind us all together. When ancient myths and legends leap from the page to the screen, they transform into something truly magical, a visual spectacle that brings the impossible to life. From the thunderous battles of Clash of the Titans to the surreal landscapes of American gods, filmmakers have long turned to mythology as a source of inspiration, adapting its timeless stories for audiences around the world. But bringing these tales to life on screen is no small feat. The challenge lies not just in capturing the grandeur of myth, but in making its larger-than-life characters and fantastical elements feel real and relatable. Take Clash of the Titans, for example. This 1981 classic, inspired by Greek mythology, introduced audiences to gods, monsters, and heroes on an epic scale. The film's stop-motion effects, groundbreaking for their time, brought creatures like Medusa and the Kraken to life, creating a sense of wonder that captivated viewers. Decades later, the 2010 remake upped the ante with cutting-edge CGI, immersing audiences in a world where gods walked among mortals and the stakes felt impossibly high. What both versions share is a commitment to capturing the essence of myth, its drama, its stakes, and its ability to transport us to another world. But not all adaptations aim for spectacle. American Gods, based on Neil Gaiman's novel, takes a different approach, blending ancient myths with modern-day America to explore themes of belief, identity, and cultural change. Here, gods like Odin and Anansi coexist alongside mortals, their powers waning as belief in them fades. The series uses its visual medium to juxtapose the mundane with the divine, creating a surreal, dreamlike atmosphere that mirrors the fragmented nature of modern spirituality. This approach not only honors the source material, but also invites viewers to reflect on the role of myth in their own lives. One of the greatest challenges in adapting myths for the screen is striking the right balance between staying true to the source material and making it accessible to modern audiences. Ancient myths often come with complex backstories, intricate pantheons, and symbolic meanings that can be difficult to translate into a 2-hour film or a few seasons of television. Filmmakers must distill these elements into a coherent narrative while preserving the emotional core of the story. This often means making creative choices, streamlining plots, reimagining characters, or updating settings to ensure the story resonates with contemporary viewers. Special effects play a crucial role in this process, allowing filmmakers to bring mythical elements to life in ways that feel both awe-inspiring and believable. Whether it's the shimmering scales of a dragon, the ethereal glow of a god, or the chaotic power of a storm summoned by Zeus, these visual effects help bridge the gap between the fantastical and the real. They immerse us in worlds where the impossible becomes possible, reminding us why these stories have endured for so long. Yet, the power of myth isn't confined to film and television. Video games have become another medium where these ancient stories thrive, offering players the chance to step into the shoes of mythic heroes and shape their own destinies. Games like God of War and Assassin's Creed draw heavily from mythology, blending historical settings with fantastical elements to create immersive experiences. In God of War, players take on the role of Kratos, a Spartan warrior turned god, as he navigates the treacherous realms of Norse mythology. The game doesn't just retell these myths, it reimagines them, weaving them into a narrative that feels both epic and deeply personal. What makes these adaptations so compelling is their ability to make myths interactive, allowing players to engage with the stories in a way that feels immediate and personal. They're not just passive observers, they're active participants, shaping the outcome of the story through their choices and actions. This interactivity adds a new dimension to the storytelling, making the myths feel alive in a way that's uniquely suited to the medium. As we explore the role of myths in video games, we'll see how this medium continues to push the boundaries of storytelling, offering new ways to experience the timeless tales that have shaped our imagination for centuries. Whether on screen or in the digital realm, myths remain a source of endless inspiration, proving that their magic is as potent as ever. Video games have become one of the most dynamic platforms for bringing myths to life, transforming ancient stories into interactive experiences that players can explore firsthand. Titles like God of War and The Witcher don't just borrow from mythology, they reimagine it, weaving these timeless tales into sprawling worlds that feel both familiar and fresh. Through immersive storytelling and richly detailed settings, these games invite players to step into the shoes of mythic heroes, making them active participants in narratives that have captivated humanity for centuries. Take God of War, for example. The game takes the brutal, larger-than-life figure of Kratos, a character originally rooted in Greek mythology, and transplants him into the icy, mystical world of Norse myth. Here, Kratos isn't just a warrior, he's a father, navigating a complex relationship with his son, Atreus, while grappling with his own violent past. The game masterfully blends Norse legends with Kratos' personal journey, introducing players to gods like Odin and Thor, creatures like Jörmungandr, and the looming threat of Ragnarok. What makes God of War so compelling is how it balances epic mythic stakes with intimate human emotions. It's not just about slaying gods, it's about redemption, legacy, and the bonds that define us. Similarly, the Witcher series draws heavily from Slavic and European folklore, creating a world where mythical creatures and moral ambiguity collide. Geralt of Rivia, the game's protagonist, is a monster hunter navigating a landscape filled with beings straight out of legend, from the terrifying Leshen to the seductive succubus. But The Witcher doesn't just present these creatures as enemies to defeat. It delves into their origins, their roles in the world, and the moral dilemmas they create. Should Geralt slay a monster that's only defending its territory, or spare a cursed being that was once human? These choices force players to engage with the myths on a deeper level, challenging them to think about the stories behind the creatures and the consequences of their actions. What sets video games apart from other mediums is their interactivity. In a film or book, we watch or read about heroes facing their destinies. In a game, we become the heroes, making decisions that shape the story. This active participation transforms myths from something distant and static into something personal and immediate. When you're the one wielding Kratos' axe or Geralt's sword, the stakes feel real, the choices matter, and the myths become a part of your own journey. This resurgence of interest in myths through video games reflects a broader trend in modern storytelling. As audiences seek deeper, more immersive experiences, creators are turning to the rich well of mythology to craft narratives that resonate on multiple levels. Games like Hades, which reimagines Greek mythology through a roguelike format, or Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which explores Norse legends through the lens of historical fiction, are proof that myths remain a powerful source of inspiration. These modern retellings don't just preserve the stories of the past, they breathe new life into them, making them relevant to today's audiences. What's fascinating is how these games often encourage players to explore the myths themselves. After battling Norse gods or encountering Slavic spirits, many players find themselves diving into the original stories, eager to learn more about the lore that inspired their favorite games. This cyclical relationship between ancient myths and modern media creates a feedback loop where the old stories spark new interpretations, and those interpretations, in turn, spark renewed interest in the originals. As we move forward, we'll see how this interplay between myth and modernity continues to evolve, shaping not just the stories we play, but the way we think about storytelling itself. The resurgence of myths in video games is more than just a trend. It's a testament to the enduring power of these ancient tales and their ability to inspire, challenge, and connect us across time and space. In recent years, there's been a remarkable resurgence of interest in ancient myths, not as relics of the past, but as living, breathing stories that speak to the present. Authors like Madeline Miller and Neil Gaiman have taken these age-old tales and reimagined them, crafting narratives that feel both timeless and strikingly modern. Their works don't just retell myths, they breathe new life into them, offering fresh perspectives and deeper emotional resonance for today's readers. Madeline Miller's Circe is a perfect example of this transformative approach. In Greek mythology, Circe is often reduced to a one-dimensional figure, a sorceress who turns Odysseus' men into pigs. But Miller's novel redefines her, presenting Circe as a complex, multidimensional character. Through her eyes, we see the gods' cruelty, the loneliness of immortality, and the struggle for agency in a world that seeks to control her. Miller's retelling isn't just a story about a witch, it's a meditation on power, identity, and the cost of defiance. By centering Circe's perspective, Miller invites readers to reconsider a myth they thought they knew, revealing layers of meaning that resonate with contemporary themes of empowerment and resilience. Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology takes a different but equally compelling approach. Instead of reinventing the myths, Gaiman retells them with his signature wit and charm, making the ancient tales accessible to modern audiences. His versions of Thor's hammer-wielding exploits, Loki's trickery, and Odin's wisdom are infused with humor and humanity, bringing the gods down to earth without losing their grandeur. Gaiman's retellings remind us that myths are, at their core, stories meant to entertain, to teach, and to connect us to something larger than ourselves. What makes these modern retellings so powerful is their ability to bridge the gap between the ancient and the contemporary. They take myths that might feel distant or inaccessible and make them immediate and relatable. In Circe, we see echoes of modern struggles for autonomy and self-expression. In Norse mythology, we find humor and humanity in the gods' flaws and foibles. These retellings don't just preserve the myths, they revitalize them, showing us why these stories have endured for so long. But it's not just about entertainment. Myths have always served a deeper purpose, shaping the moral and ethical frameworks of the societies that told them. In ancient times, myths were a way to explore complex questions about right and wrong, justice and mercy, and the nature of the divine. Today, modern retellings continue this tradition, using the language of myth to grapple with contemporary issues. Take, for example, the way Circe explores themes of power and oppression. Circe's journey from a marginalized figure to a powerful, self-determined woman mirrors the struggles of many in today's world. Her story becomes a lens through which we can examine our own societal structures and the ways they shape or limit individual agency. Similarly, Gaiman's Norse mythology subtly raises questions about leadership, loyalty, and the consequences of ambition, themes that feel as relevant in the boardroom as they do in Valhalla. This ability to connect the ancient and the modern is what makes myths so enduring. They're not just stories, they're tools for understanding the world and our place in it. By retelling these myths, authors like Miller and Gaiman keep them alive, ensuring that they continue to inspire, challenge, and guide us. As we look ahead, it's clear that myths will remain a vital part of our cultural landscape, offering new ways to explore the timeless questions that define us. Whether through the pages of a novel, the frames of a film, or the pixels of a video game, these ancient stories will continue to evolve, reflecting the hopes, fears, and dreams of each new generation. And in that evolution, we find not just the echoes of the past, but the seeds of the future. At the heart of every great myth and fantasy story lies a deeper truth, a moral lesson that transcends time and culture. These tales, whether told around ancient firesides or written in the pages of modern novels, are more than just entertainment. They are mirrors reflecting the values, fears, and aspirations of humanity, using allegory and symbolism to explore universal themes that resonate across generations. One of the most enduring themes is the classic battle between good and evil. In ancient myths, this struggle often took the form of gods and heroes confronting monstrous foes. Take the Babylonian Epic of Gilgamesh, where the hero battles Humbaba, a demonic guardian of the cedar forest. On the surface, it's a tale of bravery and adventure, but beneath it lies a deeper exploration of humanity's struggle against chaos and destruction. Similarly, in modern fantasy, we see this theme echoed in stories like The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo and his companions face the overwhelming darkness of Sauron. These narratives remind us that the fight against evil isn't just about external threats, it's also about the choices we make and the courage to stand firm in the face of adversity. Another powerful lesson is the importance of sacrifice. Myths are filled with stories of heroes who give up something precious for the greater good. In Greek mythology, Prometheus defies Zeus to bring fire to humanity, enduring eternal punishment for his act of selflessness. This theme of sacrifice is equally prominent in modern fantasy, as seen in Harry Potter when Harry willingly walks to his death to save his friends. These stories teach us that true heroism often requires giving up something dear, whether it's comfort, safety, or even life itself. They challenge us to consider what we're willing to sacrifice for the people and principles we hold dear. Hubris, or excessive pride, is another recurring theme, often serving as a cautionary tale. In Greek mythology, the story of Icarus warns of the dangers of overreaching, as he flies too close to the sun despite his father's warnings. Modern fantasy often revisits this theme, as in Game of Thrones, where characters like Cersei Lannister and Daenerys Targaryen face devastating consequences for their unchecked ambition. These narratives remind us that power, when wielded without humility or restraint, can lead to downfall, a lesson as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. But what makes these moral lessons so compelling isn't just their universality. It's the way they connect with us on a psychological level. Stories of good versus evil tap into our innate desire for justice and order. Tales of sacrifice appeal to our capacity for empathy and selflessness, and warnings about hubris resonate with our understanding of human limitations. These stories don't just entertain, they shape our understanding of the world and our place in it, offering guidance, comfort, and a sense of shared humanity. By exploring these timeless themes, myths and fantasy stories become more than just escapism, they become tools for reflection and growth. They invite us to ask ourselves, what would we do in the face of overwhelming darkness? What are we willing to give up for the people we love? And how do we navigate the fine line between ambition and arrogance? These questions linger long after the story ends, sparking conversations and insights that enrich our lives. As we move forward, we'll delve into how these moral lessons continue to shape not just the stories we tell, but the way we see ourselves and the world around us. The journey from myth to modern fantasy is more than a literary evolution. It's a testament to the enduring power of storytelling to inspire, challenge, and transform us. Myths and fantasy stories have a unique power to touch something deep within us, something that transcends time, culture, and individual experience. At their core, these tales tap into universal human emotions, the fear of the unknown, the hope for a better future, and the desire to find meaning in a chaotic world. They don't just entertain, they speak to the very essence of what it means to be human. This connection between myth and psychology was famously explored by Carl Jung, who introduced the concept of the collective unconscious. Jung believed that beneath our individual experiences lies a shared reservoir of memories, symbols, and instincts, a kind of psychological blueprint that all humans inherit. Within this collective unconscious, archetypes emerge, universal patterns or themes that appear in myths, dreams, and stories across cultures. Think of the hero, the mentor, the trickster, or the shadow. These archetypes aren't just characters, they're reflections of shared human experiences, embodying the struggles, desires, and fears that unite us all. Modern fantasy continues to draw from this well of archetypes, using them to craft narratives that feel both familiar and fresh. Take the hero's journey, for example. Whether it's Harry Potter stepping into his role as the Chosen One or Katniss Everdeen becoming the face of a rebellion, these characters follow a path that echoes the archetypal hero's quest. Their struggles resonate because they mirror our battles with self-doubt, our search for purpose, and our need to overcome adversity. By tapping into these universal themes, fantasy stories offer more than escapism. They provide a mirror for our own lives, helping us make sense of the challenges we face. Fear is another powerful force that myths and fantasy explore. Ancient myths often confronted humanity's deepest fears: death, chaos, the unknown, through stories of gods, monsters, and epic battles. These tales weren't just about external threats, they were also about internal struggles, reflecting the anxieties and uncertainties of the people who told them. In modern fantasy, fear remains a central theme, but it often takes on new forms. The White Walkers in Game of Thrones aren't just ice zombies. They represent existential dread, the fear of an unstoppable force that threatens to erase everything we hold dear. Similarly, the Dementors in Harry Potter embody despair and the loss of hope, making them far more terrifying than any physical monster. But myths and fantasy don't just explore fear, they also offer hope. These stories remind us that even in the darkest times, courage, kindness, and resilience can prevail. The journey of Frodo and Sam in The Lord of the Rings isn't just about destroying a ring. It's about the power of friendship and perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. These narratives give us a sense of possibility, showing us that no matter how dire the circumstances, there's always a chance for redemption, renewal, and triumph. At a deeper level, myths and fantasy fulfill our need for meaning. In a world that often feels fragmented and uncertain, these stories provide a sense of order and purpose. They help us navigate the complexities of life by presenting clear moral dilemmas, archetypal struggles, and universal truths. Whether it's the ethical questions raised by The Witcher or the spiritual themes woven into the Chronicles of Narnia, these narratives invite us to reflect on our own values and beliefs, offering guidance and insight along the way. This psychological dimension of myth and fantasy isn't just personal, it's also societal. Myths have long played a role in shaping cultural norms and values, serving as a shared framework for understanding the world. They reinforce social cohesion, offering a common language and set of symbols that bind communities together. In modern times, fantasy continues to fulfill this role, creating stories that resonate across diverse audiences and spark conversations about identity, morality, and the human condition. As we move forward, we'll explore how myths and fantasy not only reflect our psychological needs, but also shape the way we see ourselves and the world around us. The journey from ancient fireside tales to modern blockbusters is more than a literary evolution. It's a testament to the enduring power of stories to connect, inspire, and transform us. Myths have always been more than just stories, they're cultural blueprints, shaping the way societies view themselves and their place in the world. For centuries, myths have reinforced societal norms, from rigid gender roles to hierarchical power structures, often reflecting the values and beliefs of the cultures that created them. In ancient Greece, for example, myths like those of Pandora and Helen of Troy often portrayed women as either temptresses or passive figures, reinforcing patriarchal ideals. Similarly, Norse myths frequently depicted gods like Odin and Thor as embodiments of strength and leadership, reinforcing the idea of male dominance in both the divine and mortal realms. These narratives weren't just entertainment, they were tools for teaching and upholding the social order. But myths are also dynamic, capable of evolving to reflect changing values. In modern fantasy, we see a deliberate effort to challenge and subvert these traditional norms. Take Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones, for instance. In a world where women are often relegated to secondary roles, Brienne defies expectations, becoming a knight who embodies honor, strength, and resilience. Her journey isn't just about breaking gender barriers. It's a powerful statement about individuality and the right to define oneself outside societal constraints. Similarly, Loki, a figure rooted in Norse mythology, has been reimagined in both literature and media as a gender-fluid character, reflecting contemporary conversations about identity and fluidity. These modern interpretations don't just challenge old norms, they invite us to rethink the way we see ourselves and others. This subversion of traditional norms isn't limited to gender. Myths have long been used to justify power structures, portraying kings and gods as divinely ordained leaders. In modern fantasy, however, we often see these structures questioned or dismantled. The Hunger Games, for example, uses the myth of the hero's journey to critique oppressive systems and the abuse of power. Katniss Everdeen's rise from a reluctant participant to a symbol of rebellion mirrors the archetypal hero's quest, but it also challenges the idea of passive acceptance, encouraging readers to question authority and fight for justice. These shifts in storytelling reflect broader societal changes, showing how myths can both reinforce and challenge the status quo. But they also highlight the role of myths in education and cultural transmission. For centuries, myths have been used to teach moral lessons, instill values, and explain the world. In oral traditions, they were a way to pass down knowledge from one generation to the next, ensuring that important lessons weren't lost. Today, fantasy stories continue this tradition, using the language of myth to explore complex ideas and spark conversations about identity, power, and morality. What makes this evolution so fascinating is its universality. Myths and fantasy stories aren't just relics of the past or escapist entertainment, they're mirrors, reflecting the hopes, fears, and aspirations of the societies that create and consume them. By reimagining traditional myths and challenging outdated norms, modern fantasy invites us to envision a world where diversity, equality, and individuality are celebrated. It's a reminder that stories have the power not just to reflect the world as it is, but to shape the world as it could be. As we move forward, we'll explore how these storytelling traditions continue to evolve, influencing not just the stories we tell, but the way we see ourselves and the world around us. The journey from myth to modern fantasy is far from over. It's a living, breathing process that grows with every new story we create. Myths have long been more than just tales of gods and heroes. They've been powerful tools for teaching, shaping minds, and passing down wisdom from one generation to the next. In ancient times, myths were the textbooks of their day, offering lessons on morality, courage, and the consequences of human actions. Take the story of Icarus, for instance, whose tragic flight too close to the sun serves as a timeless warning against hubris. These stories weren't just told for entertainment. They were crafted to teach, to guide, and to instill values that would help individuals navigate the complexities of life. Even today, myths continue to play a vital role in education, though their form has evolved. Modern classrooms often turn to fantasy literature as a way to engage students and spark critical thinking. Books like Harry Potter and the Hunger Games aren't just gripping adventures. They're rich with themes that invite discussion about power, inequality, and the choices that define us. Teachers use these stories to help students explore complex ideas in a way that feels accessible and relatable. When students analyze Katniss Everdeen's struggle against an oppressive regime, they're not just reading about a fictional world. They're grappling with real-world issues like justice, resistance, and the cost of freedom. What makes these stories so effective as teaching tools is their ability to connect with readers on an emotional level. Myths and fantasy literature tap into universal experiences, fear, hope, love, and loss, making their lessons feel immediate and personal. They allow students to step into the shoes of characters facing extraordinary challenges, encouraging empathy and perspective-taking. This emotional engagement, combined with the moral and ethical dilemmas these stories present, creates a powerful learning experience that goes beyond traditional lectures or textbooks. But the role of myths in education isn't just about teaching specific values or skills, it's also about preserving cultural heritage. Myths are the threads that weave together the fabric of a community's identity, carrying forward its traditions, beliefs, and collective memory. When we share these stories with younger generations, we're not just passing down tales, we're preserving a sense of continuity and connection to the past. This is why efforts to keep myths and folklore alive through storytelling festivals, cultural programs, and adaptations in modern media are so important. They ensure that these narratives remain vibrant and relevant even as the world around us changes. Beyond their educational value, myths also play a profound role in shaping personal identity. The stories we grow up with, whether they're ancient legends or modern fantasy, help us make sense of who we are and where we come from. They provide a framework for understanding our place in the world, offering archetypes and narratives that resonate with our own experiences. For many, these stories become a source of inspiration, guiding them through challenges and helping them define their values and goals. In this way, myths and fantasy literature are more than just teaching tools or cultural artifacts. They're mirrors that reflect our deepest questions and aspirations. They invite us to explore what it means to be human, to face our fears, and to strive for something greater. And as long as we continue to tell these stories, they'll remain a vital part of our shared journey, connecting us to the past while inspiring the future. As we move forward, we'll see how these timeless tales continue to shape not just education and identity, but the very way we understand ourselves and the world around us. The power of myth lies not just in the stories themselves, but in the endless possibilities they offer for growth, connection, and discovery. Myths and fantasy stories have a profound way of touching the core of who we are, offering more than just tales of adventure. They provide a mirror for exploring our identities and beliefs. For many individuals, these narratives become a safe space to grapple with questions about who they are, where they belong, and what they stand for. The archetypes and themes woven into myths, heroes, quests, and moral dilemmas serve as frameworks for understanding the complexities of life, helping us make sense of our own struggles and aspirations. Consider the countless fans who find solace in fantasy worlds like Middle-earth or Westeros. For some, these stories offer an escape from the pressures of everyday life, a place where they can momentarily step away from their challenges and immerse themselves in a world of magic and wonder. But for others, these narratives resonate on a deeper level, reflecting their own experiences and struggles. A fan who feels like an outsider might see themselves in Frodo, burdened by a responsibility they didn't choose but determined to see it through. Someone grappling with loss might find comfort in the story of Harry Potter, who, despite his grief, finds strength in friendship and purpose. These stories don't just entertain, they validate, inspire, and empower. This connection between myth and personal identity isn't just about finding parallels. It's about using these stories as tools for self-discovery. The hero's journey, for instance, isn't just a plot structure, it's a metaphor for personal growth. Fans often see their own lives reflected in the stages of this journey: the call to adventure, the trials and tribulations, and the eventual return home, transformed by the experience. For someone navigating a difficult transition, like starting a new career or overcoming a personal crisis, this narrative can provide a sense of direction and hope. It reminds them that challenges are part of the process and that transformation is possible. But myths and fantasy don't just help us understand ourselves, they also help us connect with others. Fandoms, for example, are built around shared love for these stories, creating communities where people can celebrate their passions and find like-minded individuals. These spaces become more than just fan clubs. They're support networks where people can share their experiences, celebrate their victories, and find comfort in knowing they're not alone. For someone who feels isolated or misunderstood, finding a community that embraces their love for fantasy can be a lifeline, offering a sense of belonging and acceptance. As we look to the future, it's clear that myths and fantasy will continue to play a vital role in shaping personal identity, especially in a world that's constantly evolving. In an age of rapid technological change and shifting societal norms, these stories offer a sense of stability and continuity, reminding us of the timeless truths that connect us. At the same time, they're evolving to reflect the diversity and complexity of modern life, offering new narratives that speak to a broader range of experiences. Whether it's through the pages of a book, the frames of a film, or the pixels of a video game, myths and fantasy will remain a powerful tool for exploring who we are and who we can become. This ongoing evolution of myths isn't just about preserving the past, it's about creating a future where everyone can see themselves reflected in the stories we tell. As we move forward, we'll explore how these timeless tales continue to inspire, challenge, and connect us, proving that the power of myth is as boundless as the human imagination. As we stand on the brink of a new era, the future of myths and fantasy is unfolding in ways that would have been unimaginable to the storytellers of old. The digital age has opened up a universe of possibilities, transforming how we create, share, and experience these timeless tales. Virtual reality, interactive media, and immersive storytelling are no longer the stuff of science fiction. They're here, reshaping the way we connect with stories and each other. Imagine stepping into the shoes of a mythic hero, not just reading about their journey or watching it on screen, but living it in a fully realized virtual world. This isn't just storytelling, it's story living, a radical shift that brings myths closer to us than ever before. Virtual reality, for instance, has the potential to turn myths into visceral experiences. Picture yourself standing atop Mount Olympus, the thunderous voice of Zeus echoing around you, or navigating the labyrinth of Crete, the Minotaur's roar sending shivers down your spine. These immersive environments don't just retell myths, they make them feel real, allowing us to engage with these stories on a deeply personal level. But the possibilities go even further. Interactive media like video games and branching narratives lets us shape the story itself, making choices that influence the outcome. What if you could decide whether to spare Medusa or strike her down, or choose the path of a trickster like Loki, weaving chaos and challenging the gods? These technologies don't just modernize myths, they transform them into dynamic, participatory experiences that reflect our own agency and creativity. Yet, as exciting as these advancements are, the true power of myths lies in their ability to address the challenges of our time. In an era of climate change, social inequality, and global uncertainty, these ancient stories offer more than escapism. They provide frameworks for understanding and action. Myths have always been a way to grapple with the unknown, to find meaning in chaos, and to imagine a better future. Today, they're being reimagined to tackle contemporary issues. For instance, stories inspired by indigenous myths are being used to highlight environmental stewardship, reminding us of our connection to the earth and the urgent need to protect it. Similarly, fantasy narratives are exploring themes of social justice, using the language of myth to challenge inequality and envision a more equitable world. What's remarkable is how these stories continue to unite us even as they evolve. In a world that often feels divided, myths and fantasy offer a shared language, a way to connect across cultures and generations. Whether it's through a blockbuster film, a best-selling novel, or an interactive game, these stories remind us of our common humanity. They inspire us to dream, to hope, and to believe in the possibility of change. As we look to the future, it's clear that myths and fantasy will continue to adapt, reflecting the hopes, fears, and aspirations of each new generation. They'll take on new forms, explore new themes, and reach new audiences, but their essence will remain the same. These stories are more than just entertainment. They're a testament to the enduring power of the human imagination, a bridge between the past and the future, and a reminder that, no matter how much the world changes, the need for stories that inspire and unite will never fade. The journey of myths from ancient firesides to virtual realities is a testament to their timelessness. They've survived wars, revolutions, and the rise and fall of empires, yet they remain as vital and relevant as ever. And as long as we continue to dream, to question, and to imagine, these stories will keep evolving, guiding us through the challenges of today and into the possibilities of tomorrow. The timeless allure of myths and fantasy lies in their ability to speak to something fundamental within us, a shared human experience that transcends the boundaries of time, culture, and geography. These stories, whether told by ancient bards around a fire or projected onto the silver screen, tap into universal themes that resonate deeply with audiences of all ages. Love, loss, courage, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness, these are the threads that weave through every myth, connecting us to the past and to each other. One reason these stories endure is their emotional depth. Myths and fantasy don't just entertain, they evoke feelings that are universally human. The grief of Achilles mourning Patroclus, the determination of Frodo carrying the ring to Mount Doom, or the bittersweet triumph of Katniss Everdeen surviving the Hunger Games. These moments strike a chord because they mirror our own experiences. They remind us of the strength we find in vulnerability, the hope that persists even in despair, and the courage it takes to face the unknown. Modern creators continue to draw from this well of ancient inspiration, reimagining myths for new audiences while preserving their timeless essence. Take Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series, which breathes new life into Greek mythology by setting it in the modern world. Riordan's witty, relatable take on gods and heroes introduces younger readers to these ancient tales while exploring contemporary themes like identity and belonging. Similarly, the Witcher series, inspired by Slavic folklore, uses its mythical roots to craft a world rich with moral complexity, where the line between hero and villain is often blurred. But it's not just about retelling old stories, it's about using them as a springboard for creativity. myths provide a framework, a shared language that creators can build upon to explore new ideas. For instance, Neil Gaiman's American Gods blends ancient deities with modern-day America, creating a narrative that's as much about the clash of cultures as it is about the power of belief. This interplay between the ancient and the modern allows creators to push boundaries, experimenting with themes and styles while staying grounded in the familiar. What's fascinating is how myths foster creativity, not just in writers and filmmakers, but in all of us. They invite us to imagine, to question, and to dream. When we read about heroes facing impossible odds or gods meddling in mortal affairs, we're not just passive observers, we're active participants, envisioning ourselves in those roles and pondering what we might do in their place. This act of imaginative engagement is where creativity thrives, sparking ideas that can ripple out into our own lives and work. The enduring power of myths and fantasy lies in their ability to inspire, to challenge, and to connect. They remind us that, despite our differences, we're all part of the same human story, one that's been unfolding for thousands of years. And as long as we continue to tell these stories, they'll remain a source of wonder, a mirror for our hopes and fears, and a testament to the boundless potential of the human imagination. As we move forward, we'll explore how these timeless tales continue to shape not just the stories we tell, but the way we see ourselves and the world around us. The journey of myth and fantasy is far from over. It's a living, breathing tradition that grows with every new story, every new voice, and every new dream. Myths and legends are more than just stories. They're a wellspring of creativity, sparking the imaginations of writers, artists, and filmmakers across generations. These ancient tales, with their rich characters, vivid imagery, and profound themes, provide an endless source of inspiration. Whether it's the epic battles of Greek mythology or the mystical creatures of Celtic folklore, myths offer a treasure trove of ideas waiting to be reimagined. But adapting these stories for modern audiences isn't just about retelling them, it's about breathing new life into them, finding fresh ways to connect with the timeless truths they carry. Take, for example, the way Neil Gaiman reimagines Norse mythology in his novel American Gods. Gaiman doesn't simply retell the myths of Odin, Loki, and Thor. He transplants them into a contemporary setting, exploring what happens when ancient deities clash with modern beliefs. This blending of old and new creates a narrative that feels both familiar and innovative, inviting readers to see these myths through a different lens. Similarly, Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series takes the gods and heroes of Greek mythology and places them in a modern-day world, making these ancient figures relatable to a younger audience. These adaptations succeed because they respect the essence of the original myths while finding creative ways to make them resonate with today's readers. For filmmakers, myths offer a visual and emotional playground. Directors like Guillermo del Toro draw heavily from folklore and mythology to craft films that are as visually stunning as they are thematically rich. In Pan's Labyrinth, del Toro weaves together elements of Spanish folklore and myth to create a dark, enchanting tale that explores innocence, brutality, and the power of imagination. The film's mythical creatures like the Pale Man and the Faun aren't just fantastical beings. They're symbols embodying the fears and hopes of the story's young protagonist. By grounding these mythical elements in a deeply human story, Del Toro creates a work that feels both timeless and deeply personal. Yet, adapting myths for modern audiences comes with its challenges. How do you stay true to the essence of a centuries-old story while making it feel fresh and relevant? How do you honor the cultural roots of a myth without appropriating or distorting them? These are questions creators must grapple with as they navigate the delicate balance between tradition and innovation. For many, the key lies in understanding the core themes and emotions of the myth, what makes it endure, and then finding a way to translate those elements into a new context. It's not about copying the past, it's about reinterpreting it in a way that speaks to the present. This process of adaptation is a testament to the power of imagination. Myths, after all, are living stories. They evolve with each retelling, shaped by the creativity of those who tell them. Every time a writer, artist, or filmmaker reimagines a myth, they add a new layer to its legacy, ensuring that it continues to inspire and resonate. This creative evolution is what keeps myths alive, transforming them from relics of the past into vibrant, dynamic narratives that connect us across time and culture. But myths don't just inspire individual creativity, they also bring people together. Across the globe, communities gather to celebrate their shared myths, whether through festivals, rituals, or storytelling traditions. These gatherings aren't just about preserving the past, they're about creating a sense of belonging, a connection to something larger than ourselves. In this way, myths become more than stories, they become the threads that weave communities together, fostering a shared identity and a sense of continuity. As we move forward, we'll explore how these communal aspects of myth and storytelling continue to shape the way we connect with one another, creating spaces where creativity, tradition, and community intersect. The journey of myth is far from over. It's a living, breathing tradition that grows with every new story, every new voice, and every new dream. Myths and fantasy stories have a remarkable ability to bring people together, creating communities that span the globe and transcend cultural boundaries. From massive fan conventions like Comic-Con to intimate online forums, these tales foster connections that go beyond mere fandom. They create a sense of belonging and shared identity. Imagine walking into a convention hall filled with thousands of people, all united by their love for the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. It's not just about costumes and collectibles, it's about finding a space where you're understood, where your passion for these stories is celebrated rather than questioned. These gatherings become more than events, they're celebrations of imagination, where strangers become friends through their shared love of myth and fantasy. Online communities amplify this sense of connection, offering platforms where fans can discuss, debate, and dive deep into their favorite stories. Reddit threads analyzing the lore of Game of Thrones, Discord servers dedicated to Dungeons and Dragons, or fanfiction sites reimagining the worlds of Percy Jackson. These digital spaces are modern-day campfires where stories are told, retold, and reimagined. What's remarkable is how these communities often extend beyond the stories themselves, becoming support networks where people share personal experiences, offer advice, and find comfort in knowing they're not alone. In a world that can often feel fragmented, these connections remind us of the power of stories to unite us. At the heart of these communities lies storytelling itself, a tradition as old as humanity. Myths and fantasy tales aren't just entertainment, they're tools for fostering empathy and understanding. When we immerse ourselves in the struggles of Frodo or the triumphs of Katniss, we're not just observing their journeys, we're stepping into their shoes, seeing the world through their eyes. This act of empathy, of walking in someone else's story, helps us better understand the people around us. It's why these stories resonate so deeply. They remind us of our shared humanity, our common hopes, and our universal struggles. But the impact of these tales goes even deeper. For many, myths and fantasy stories become a mirror, reflecting their own experiences and helping them navigate the complexities of life. A young reader might see themselves in Hermione Granger's determination to prove herself, or a struggling artist might find inspiration in the resilience of Bilbo Baggins. These stories offer more than escapism. They provide a framework for understanding who we are and who we can become. they remind us that no matter how daunting the challenges we face, we're part of a larger story, one filled with courage, hope, and the possibility of transformation. As we reflect on the role of myths and fantasy in our lives, it's clear that these stories are more than just tales. They're bridges connecting us to each other and to something greater than ourselves. Whether through the laughter shared at a convention, the camaraderie of an online forum, or the quiet moments spent lost in a book, these stories remind us of the power of imagination to bring people together. And in a world that often feels divided, that sense of connection is more important than ever. As we turn our attention to the next part of our journey, we'll explore how these timeless tales continue to shape not just the way we connect with others, but the way we see ourselves and the world around us. The power of myth and fantasy lies not just in the stories themselves, but in the communities they inspire and the lives they touch. Myths and fantasy stories have a way of weaving themselves into the fabric of our lives, leaving an indelible mark that goes beyond mere entertainment. For many, these tales aren't just stories, they're lifelines, sources of inspiration, and even guides through life's toughest moments. Take, for instance, the story of a young woman who found solace in the pages of Harry Potter during a difficult childhood. For her, Hogwarts wasn't just a magical school. It was a refuge, a place where she could escape the challenges of her reality and find hope in the courage of characters like Hermione and Harry. Years later, she credits those books with giving her the strength to pursue her dreams, eventually becoming a teacher who now shares the magic of storytelling with her own students. Then there's the engineer who grew up devouring The Lord of the Rings, captivated by the intricate world building and the unyielding determination of Frodo and Sam. For him, Tolkien's work wasn't just a tale of adventure, it was a blueprint for perseverance. The idea that even the smallest person could change the course of the future resonated deeply, shaping his approach to problem solving and innovation in his career. Stories like these remind us that myths and fantasy aren't just escapism, they're mirrors, reflecting our struggles and aspirations, and often providing the strength we need to face our own journeys. But it's not just about personal growth, it's also about connection. For some, these stories become a shared language, a way to bond with others who love them just as deeply. Consider the countless friendships forged over a mutual love of Game of Thrones or the sense of community found in Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. These stories create spaces where people can come together, share their passions, and find a sense of belonging. In a world that can often feel isolating, these connections are a reminder of the power of stories to bring people closer. What makes these tales so impactful is their ability to evoke emotions that feel universal. Whether it's the heartache of a hero's loss, the triumph of overcoming impossible odds, or the quiet joy of finding a place to belong, these stories tap into feelings we all understand. They remind us that no matter how different our lives may seem, we're all part of the same human story, one filled with challenges, growth, and the possibility of transformation. As we reflect on the journey we've taken through these timeless tales, it's clear that myths and fantasy are more than just stories. They're tools for understanding, for connection, and for growth. They remind us of the power of imagination to inspire, to heal, and to unite. Whether it's through the pages of a book, the frames of a film, or the pixels of a game, these stories continue to shape the way we see ourselves and the world around us. And so, as we close this chapter, let's carry forward the lessons these stories have taught us about courage, about resilience, and about the endless possibilities of the human spirit. Because the magic of myths and fantasy isn't just in the tales themselves, it's in the way they live on in us, shaping our lives and our dreams long after the final page is turned or the credits roll. From the ancient firesides where bards first spun tales of gods and heroes, to the sprawling universes of modern fantasy that captivate us today, myths have always been more than just stories. They are the heartbeat of human imagination. Across centuries and cultures, these timeless legends have shaped the way we dream, create, and understand the world around us. They've given us dragons to fear, heroes to admire, and worlds to explore, all while reflecting the deepest truths about who we are and what we aspire to become. This journey through the mystical tales that inspired modern fantasy has shown us how myths are not static relics of the past, but living, breathing narratives that evolve with each retelling. From the epic adventures of Gilgamesh to the intricate moral dilemmas of Game of Thrones, these stories have transcended time, adapting to new context while retaining their core essence. They remind us that the struggles, triumphs, and questions at the heart of these tales are universal, whether it's the quest for identity, the battle between light and darkness, or the search for meaning in a chaotic world. What makes these myths so enduring is their ability to speak to the human experience in ways that feel both ancient and immediate. They invite us to see ourselves in the hero's journey, to find courage in the face of adversity, and to believe in the possibility of transformation. Whether it's the courage of Frodo Baggins, the resilience of Katniss Everdeen, or the wit of Anansi the Spider, these stories remind us that the power to shape our destiny lies within us. And it's not just the characters that captivate us, it's the worlds they inhabit. From the misty hills of Celtic legends to the sprawling cities of Westeros, myths and fantasy have given us landscapes that feel as real as they are fantastical. These worlds are more than just backdrops, they are reflections of our own hopes, fears, and dreams, offering a space where we can explore the impossible and imagine the extraordinary. As we conclude this exploration, let's remember the words of Joseph Campbell, who once said, "Myth is the secret opening through which the inexhaustible energies of the cosmos pour into human cultural manifestation." These stories are not just tales of the past, they are portals to the infinite, inviting us to dream, to question, and to connect with something greater than ourselves. So, what's your favorite myth or fantasy story? Is it the epic heroism of the Lord of the Rings, the moral complexity of The Witcher, or the timeless magic of Harry Potter? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how these tales have inspired you. And if you enjoyed this journey through the timeless legends that shaped modern fantasy, don't forget to subscribe for more content on historical mysteries, mythical tales, and the stories that continue to shape our world. Thank you for joining me on this adventure through the heart of storytelling. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep exploring, and remember, the magic of myths is all around us, waiting to be discovered.